on the Newman Jets Audio Network. This is the Jetcast, the official podcast of Newman University Athletics, featuring exclusive interviews with coaches, players, administrators, and more. The Jetcast podcast is brought to you by South Central Ceiling and Paving, online at SCSEALING.com. Mel Hambledon Ford, Pepsi, Allstate Insurance Agent Mike Light, Eck Agency, Donlinger Construction, Big Corner Creative, Dr. Brennan Lucas and Advanced Orthopedic Associates, Keystone Solid Surfaces, and by Overland Charters, the official transportation provider of Newman University Athletics. Here's the voice of the Newman Jets, Blake Cripps.
The Newman Jets wrestling team was all set to make another postseason landing last season. The Jets qualified 2 for the NCAA championships in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Tyler Lawley and Cameron Frame already in the Mount Rushmore State, looking to bring home the Jets' second national title. Then came the devastating news: tournament canceled, one of the earliest casualties of coronavirus. Both return this season, hoping to bring back the Jets' second NCAA national title to Wichita. To look at wrestling's plans for 2020 and beyond, we're joined by the man entering his 17th year with the program, 13th as the head coach. Ryan Smith joins me here on the Jetcast. This is episode number 21 of the show. Coach, appreciate the time so much. Thank you for being here.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Well, I feel like I have to preface pretty much every interview now with, how's 2020 treating you guys? Because it seems to be hitting everybody differently, in challenges in different ways this year, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely been interesting, but we're making the best of it.
Well, looking ahead here, winter sports obviously did get some good news here recently with basketball now firmly entrenched on the schedule, November. They mentioned wrestling in that post, the MIAA did, in terms of their plans for winter sports, but it wasn't quite as specific because they don't run a championship in the postseason like they do for basketball. First of all, how uneasy has it been for you and the guys kind of waiting to figure out what's going to happen when it comes to wrestling this year?
Well, it's been terrible. I can
imagine.
You spend all summer planning, for the following year, and with the news coming out last week, then it kind of created more questions because, like you said, our season's a little bit different. The majority of the first half of our season is a lot of open tournaments, and we don't get into our dual competition or conference dual competition until second semester, and taking out that open tournament season, for lack of a better term. There's still more questions right now than there are answers. And even for second semester, as we move out there to that scope of it, then you got trying to look at dueling some regional competition. They're going to have their own conference schedules that are condensed. So there's a lot of concern there as far as from an overall schedule standpoint.
So what do you know? And obviously the answer, if it's I don't know, that's fine because there are so many questions right now. But what do you know about the planned schedule for MIAA schools for the 2020-2021 season, if anything?
Well, I don't know is a pretty common answer right now. That's what we've been telling all of our guys for the last 6 months. I don't know, but. As far as Newman's plan, as far as the MIAA plan, it seems like it's a pretty common theme that everyone's going to start, after that January 1st date.
Okay.
So that would lead you to believe that you're going to have 4 or 5 duels, and maybe a small jet invite. We moved that from, last year from first semester to second semester. So we're going to try to hold on to that tournament, and then we'll move on to postseason play.
So as of right now, we're talking with Ryan Smith, head wrestling coach here at Newman. As of right now, we've seen some of the other sports, baseball, softball, soccer, basketball's been working out. They've been allowed to have some practices. Soccer just a couple of weeks ago was allowed to have a scrimmage. What are you guys being allowed to do in the wrestling room right now?
Well, they never really limited us at, like they did the other sports. We were told to move on with our normal preseason. So basically, we've kind of extended our preseason a little bit longer until we had some additional answers. Now that we do know what we do now, we'll be able to start kind of prepping for a first competition date, and just, it's a lot of changes. You can't, after doing this so long, you usually have a pretty good idea, hey, what tomorrow's going to be and 2 weeks from today. But, boy, we've had to make a lot of changes along the way.
Well, and you talk about the winter season that's starting now, January 1st or thereabouts. Obviously, you guys will need some time, either whether it be after Thanksgiving and before Christmas, because I know that the class schedule is still a little unsettled, that, some plans of maybe students are not going to be on campus at a lot of these schools after Thanksgiving. Do you believe that the season could be extended past where it normally, because normally about March NCAAs are happening, could those be pushed to April? Does the NCAA cancel that championship for this year?
No, I mean, as far as our NCAA tournament goes, we were supposed to have a winter sports festival where it brings swimming and track and wrestling all together in one venue. I think there's been a lot of conversations around that as far as let's not do that this year.
Right.
So I think that's probably on the table. I could see it being extended, a couple weeks, but I haven't seen anything as far as concrete as that goes.
So I guess what we're going to tell people is NewmanJets.com and stay tuned, because we'll let you know as we learn more details on that.
Well, they're definitely going to have to stay tuned because there's nothing even on there right now anyway. So
that is right. Last year, let's go back, 5-3 as a team, 2-2 in the MIAA. Obviously, 2 national qualifiers, the highlight of the season for you guys. Your thoughts on the 2019-2020 Jets season?
I mean, we got going and we didn't really look back. I mean, arguably one of the best teams we've had since I've been here. We knocked off Fort Hays last year, beat Central Missouri handedly, took a really close loss. I think we lost to UNK 24-21.
Yeah, it's exactly what the score was.
And, UCO banged us up pretty good, but they're a tough team, but we went out, we battled every time we stepped out on the mat.
And you mentioned early in the season, I had talked to you just after that Central Oklahoma loss, and it was a blowout. I think it was 36-6. And you mentioned how the guys need to get better and how they needed to improve when I talked to you on the podcast last year. And they certainly did. What was the difference in the second half of the season versus the first half of the season when you guys were racking up all those wins?
Well, UCO's tough. I mean, they were gonna place very high at the national tournament this last year. It's unfortunate for those guys that we didn't get a chance to wrestle out that tournament. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. That duel was, I think, January 13th, January 15th, somewhere last year. That seems like it was 5 years ago at this point. So there's a lot that goes into an early duel right after that Christmas break. Guys getting their weight back under control. Just getting back into that routine. But outside of that, you look at that UCO duel and then you look at that Fort Hays duel that we ended the season on, and the guys came to wrestle and they weren't going to let down a packed house in our gym that night. That was a fun night.
Oh, it was. Outstanding atmosphere.
Had the glow sticks going, little kids in singlets. That was an awesome opportunity, awesome atmosphere, and it was fun to knock off Fort Hays for the first time I believe in the history of Newman wrestling.
Well, and I'd never seen, I'd been to a couple of wrestling matches here before. I had not seen all the lights off at just the one spotlight. I always wondered, I've been here for basketball all the time, like, what is that light underneath the scoreboard? If you haven't been here for a weeknight Newman wrestling duel, you really got to come and check it out. They really play it up. The lights are dark around the stands. Everything's focused on the mat. It's really a fun atmosphere, and that Fort Hays State match was a tremendous atmosphere. You mentioned that it was unfortunate for Central Oklahoma. They didn't get to wrestle. Obviously, you had a couple of guys that did not get to wrestle up there at the NCAA tournament. Cameron Frame, Tyler Lawley. We'll talk to Mr. Lawley here in just a few minutes here on the Jetcast. Also be joined by Drew Mouse, head baseball coach here in a bit as well. What was the emotion like for those guys and for you when, obviously, if they would have been seniors, I can't imagine the tragedy that would have been. But even still, making it back to NCAA championship is not something that's easy to do. It's a long road to get back. What was it like having to tell those guys that they were not going to get on the mat?
Well, to be honest with you, I think they seen it before I did. We just got out of our coaches meeting. We were less than 24 hours from weigh-in. We had our coaches meeting at 4 or 5 o'clock in that afternoon on Thursday. Tournament was supposed to start on Friday, and I think one of the guys seen a tweet before I actually seen the email from the NCAA that they were canceling the tournament. So, I mean, of course they were devastated. I mean, you give yourself up for a sport, a chance to not only represent your school, but you're representing yourself and doing something at the highest level possible, and that's to win a national title. That's an opportunity stripped away from you, and you're never going to get it back. But like you say, they're thankfully they weren't seniors. They get another opportunity to do what they do, but at the same time, like you said, it's tough to get back to that tournament. I mean, guys, Cameron Frame, he's been there the last 2 years, and we see him going another 2. But boy, I mean, to get out of a super regional and to place top 3 in those regionals is, I mean, it's a tough battle.
9 straight trips for your program now to the NCAA tournament. You were 5-3 last year, 2-2 in the MIAA, and you mentioned those wins over Central Missouri. Normally, very, very good wrestling program. Fort Hays State, first time you've ever beaten them in your program's history. 6 All-Americans you have produced out of this program in the last 4 years. In your mind, what's the next step that Newman Wrestling needs to take as you continue to build the program?
We're just going to continue bringing in guys that are going to buy into what we're doing. I got a phenomenal staff. We continue to add to that staff. I mean, the guys are buying in. They're believing in what we're doing. Newman is a special place. I mean, the sky's the limit as far as what these guys can do.
Obviously, the key returners, all the focus is going to be on Cameron Frame and Tyler Lawley. We're talking to Mr. Lawley here in a couple of minutes. Talk to us about him and what makes him so engaging, and I believe he's coming up on his last flight here as a Jet, coming up on his senior season. So obviously a little bit more pressure, but I know that he'll be desperate to get back to the NCAA championships. What's going to allow him to do that?
Well, it's just staying focused. I mean, and it's been tough to do. I mean, with all the, when you don't have an answer to a question and you say I'll have to get back to you, or nobody said anything about it. I mean, it's tough to stay engaged. It's tough to stay focused when you don't have those dates kind of in your mind where you're going. I mean, we're still up in the air as far as what we're going to do with him. He's still got a redshirt year to burn. If we see that, if we can make that make sense. I mean, we kind of leave it up to those guys. But there's no doubt we want to make sure he goes out on a high note. So
well, if you've been watching the program, you know that we have Question Chain, a new feature this year. So what is the question that you would like me to ask Mr. Lawley when he is sitting in that seat here in a few minutes?
Oh, you might just go back to a match a couple years ago and just ask him how he managed to turn around and pin somebody when he was down 14-0.
I remember that story.
What was going through his mind? That's one of I have never seen it in my career to see somebody be down 14-0, getting ready to get teched. And
for people who don't know, a technical fall, if you're down by 15 points at any point in a match, they throw in the white towel, it's over.
That's right.
So if he gives up one more point, he loses the match, and he comes back to pin this guy. One of the most incredible wrestling stories I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
And so we will ask him about that here in a few minutes. You mentioned weight classes. With this year not being able to get in a normal routine, does that make weight class decisions a little bit more difficult? Or do you feel like you have, with so many returners, the guys slotted in where you want them?
No, I think, honestly, with the way this year's kind of playing out, it actually gives guys a little bit more time to get down to the, weight class they would want to wrestle at or compete at. So that really hasn't played into a factor, and to be honest with you, that hasn't been really any of our conversations at this point. So, I mean, we've always taken the stance. If a guy asks us, where do you think I should go, we'll have that conversation. But I mean, believe it or not, usually the guys find a weight class that fits them, and then they battle from there.
Final question for you in this season with so many unknowns. What are your expectations for 2020, 2021 Newman Wrestling?
Our expectations remain the same. Every time we go out there, we're going to battle, and we're going to leave everything out there. we've 2018 we had our first national champ. We had high hopes that we were taking 2 last year, and those 2 guys could have won that championship. So I mean, we're every year we're trying to one up ourselves. So looking forward to it, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Coach Smith, Newman Jets Wrestling set to get started sometime after January 1st. And like I've had to say so many times on this show, you're just going to have to stay tuned and we'll keep you up to date. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Mr. Lawley, one of the 2 All-Americans from last year's Jets team, when we return on the Jetcast.
Fact is, every insurance company hopes you drive safely. But Allstate actually helps you drive safely with DriveWise. It lets you know when you go too fast and brake too hard, with feedback to help you drive safer, giving you the power to actually lower your cost. Unfortunately, you can't do anything about that. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
Check out your Allstate agent here in Wichita, Mike Light, at 316-684-0121. Thank you to Donlinger Construction, proud supporter of Newman Athletics. The Jetcast is sponsored by Dr. Brendan Lucas with Advanced Orthopedics, the official orthopedic surgeon of Newman Athletics.
Welcome back to the Jetcast. We're talking Newman Jets Wrestling. Of course, wrestling would be just about starting to get things cooking here for the season, but obviously pushed back, as you heard in the first segment with Coach Smith, expecting sometime after January 1, and hopefully November, December, we'll start getting a schedule put together for Newman. Obviously, NewmanJets.com, or follow Newman Jets on Twitter if you'd like to get the latest updates on Newman Jets Wrestling. And we're joined here by one of the 2 All-Americans off of last year's Jets team, Tyler Lawley, wrestled at 125 and 133 last year out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. How about this for a record? 39-6. Can I interest you in that? His second NCAA championship appearance from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Tyler Lawley. Tyler, congratulations, first of all, on such a spectacular season last year as a redshirt sophomore, or beg your pardon, as a junior last year, heading into your senior campaign. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, obviously last year, you don't get 39 wins by just sitting around at home, I don't imagine. What made you so tough last year?
Just my ability to turn anyone on top and to pin any of my opponents at any given time.
Winning the regional title last year, obviously heading to Sioux Falls, you had to be feeling very confident going into your second NCAA championship. What was your mindset as you headed into the Mount Rushmore State?
I was just ready to finally be able to compete at the big stage and go out on top, hopefully, and finally win a big national tournament.
Well, Coach Smith had said, and I don't know if it was you or Cameron that heard the news first, but he said that he thought that, in his recollection, that maybe you guys had found out the news about the cancellation before he did. What was that feeling like when it came down and you realized that you were not going to get that opportunity that you'd worked so hard for?
It was pretty devastating. We woke up that morning, and when he turned on ESPN, they were all talking about how the basketball tournaments were being canceled and how the NCAA should cancel the season. So we kind of had an idea that it was going to end up that way, but we didn't find out till later in the afternoon.
How long does it take to get over something like that?
I think it's just person by person. I mean,
what about for you?
It still hurts just because you never get that opportunity to compete, and there's always the what could have been, but at the end of the day, you just got to keep moving on and hope that you get back there next year.
How tough was it to move on? Because when you came back, I mean, that was about the time here in Wichita when everything was really getting closed down, couldn't go to the gym, and, the workplaces were being shut down, and we were really in that stay-at-home order for that period for those 2 months. How did you try to just keep your mind busy and keep yourself positive?
I mean, it was honestly really weird at first because when you came home, you couldn't wrestle, obviously. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't really go out and socialize. So for a while, I just sat around and thought about it. But then after that, I realized that thinking about it's not going to win a national title. So I just had to change my mindset and start planning for the next year.
Talk with Mr. Lawley here, NCAA All-American 2 times for the Newman Jets. So you mentioned the workouts, obviously, and getting set for the off-season. How did you do that without a gym to go to, without a mat to wrestle on? Was it just push-ups and sit-ups in the apartment?
Yeah, a lot of running and then just calisthenics and push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, things like that.
Well, so obviously now we're getting set for the new season here coming up after January. Does it give you any peace to know that at least you have a date where something might start to happen? I know you don't have the schedule yet, but at least there's a target date of January 1st for wrestling to begin sometime after that date. Any peace of mind from that?
Yes, absolutely. I just want to get out on the mat and be able to compete again.
How hard has it been for you guys to build team chemistry, especially with the new wrestlers, being that you guys have not necessarily had a normal off season?
It's been a bit different. I mean, practices have been a lot different, and we haven't got to do as many team events together, but I feel like the team chemistry is pretty strong overall.
So if you've been watching this program, you know that we have a new segment called Question Chain that the coach starts, and then he tells me a question he wants me to ask you. The next time we have a wrestler on, which is probably going to be Cameron Frame, you're going to get to ask him a question, and we'll continue on. And Coach Smith's question for you was, how in the world did you pull off pinning a guy down 14-0? First of all, give us the background of when this happened, how this happened, and what were your thoughts being down 14-0 in this match that you ended up winning?
Well, it was my sophomore year when we were dueling Nebraska Kearney, and I was down 14-0 with probably 2 minutes of riding time after the first period. So you just had to score one more point, and he would have tech-falled me. And after the first period, I was just thinking, there's no reason to be nervous now because you already got embarrassed in front of everyone here. And
well, you turned that around. How did you turn that around? To get a pin. I mean, that had to be up there. Was that in Nebraska?
That was actually here.
That was here. The fans had to go crazy when that happened.
Yeah. So you just have to keep your composure and just stay level-headed. And I knew that my only shot at that point was to get a fall, so I just had to be really tough on top.
Well, and he got it, and obviously one of the Newman wrestling legends was born there. Absolutely incredible. What's it like for you being with a guy like Cameron? You both making back-to-back NCAA championships together, kind of pushing each other. Do you guys ever, I know you guys are at different weight classes, do you guys ever spar together or wrestle in the wrestling room?
Yeah, we roll around occasionally, but he normally beats me up pretty well.
How much does that help you when you're going against a guy that good that, he's got like 18 or 20 pounds on you, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. How much does that help you to try to get better?
Well, just honestly, especially when you wrestle Cameron and get beat up, it just allows you to realize you're not always the best person in the room, let alone the country, so there's always rooms for improvement.
Well, I know that Coach Smith had said that the weight classes was something that he had not necessarily talked too much to you guys about, that he thought with the extra time you guys would kind of settle into the weight that you wanted to wrestle. Any change for you? Are you expecting to be right in there in the that 130-ish range for this season?
I'm not sure at the moment. I've thought about wrestling anywhere between 133 and 149, but we'll just have to get on the mat and see how my body competes and where I feel the best at.
Well, what do you think is going to make that decision for you? Because, wrestling is so much different than any other sport. You don't talk to women's basketball or men's basketball or baseball about, well, we got to gain 15 pounds or lose 15 pounds. You just kind of work out, and whatever weight you arrive at, that's fine, and you can make adjustments. But you guys sometimes have to make adjustments on a day-to-day basis in order to make your weight. How do you make the decision of what is most comfortable? What does most comfortable mean to you when talking about your weight?
Most comfortable is just whatever's manageable as far as the weight cut, and then once you get your body around to the weight that you want to compete at every day in practice, how you're practicing and where you feel optimal at.
Final question for you. What are your personal expectations for the upcoming season? 9 straight trips for to the NCAA championships for the Jets as a program. Obviously, I know you're hoping to make it 10 straight this year. And what are your expectations for the Jets as a team after going 5-3 last year and 2-2 in the MIAA?
This year, I'd really like to see us get 3 All-Americans. From what I know, that we've only ever had 2 people All-American in 1 year. So I'd like to break that record and then put together a top 15 team in the country.
Tyler Lawley, one of those NCAA All-Americans who will be looking to break that record and make his 3rd straight NCAA championship appearance this year. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk baseball. It's not too early as the Fall Classic comes toward us in the major leagues. We'll take a look ahead to a spring sport that also got cut off back in 2020. This spring, it was the last athletic contest of the year for the Jets. Drew Mouse, head baseball coach, joins me when we resume.
Hi, I'm Alex Stevenson with South Central Sealing and Paving. We specialize in parking lot maintenance. We do asphalt repair, crack seal, seal coat, slurry seal, concrete repair, striping. Heck, I'll do anything for money. My dignity can be bought. Do property management, trash pickup, snow removal. My kids gotta eat. And hey, if you need any carpet or anything like that, call my dad, Jeff Stevenson, at Harry Street Carpet. You tell him I look better than him on camera, he'll give you a 20% discount. We're South Central Ceiling. Let us fill the cracks in your asphalt.
Where can you land the best Jet swag? The official online store of Newman University Athletics, NUJetsgear.com. The store features the greatest variety of Jets logo gear anywhere, from latest clothing styles and hats to Newman branded lawn chairs and office supplies and more. NUJetsgear.com is your place to purchase sports specific, alumni, parents, and hard to find Newman merchandise. Shop right now on your computer or phone, NUJetsgear.com, or click the Shop Now button at NewmanJets.com.
Wrapping up episode 21 here of the Jetcast, and we thought baseball getting cut short last year, we don't want to give baseball and softball. We're going to have Coach Gustafson on here in a couple of weeks as well, but didn't want to let those sports go totally unmentioned here in the first semester, especially with no competition happening. And so obviously baseball last year was one of the first seasons cut short at NU. In fact, the Jets' 6-5 victory at McCarthy Field over Northeastern State turned out to be the final contest of the year for the Jets. NU 8-15 for their first-year head coach after joining NU following 7 years of assistant coaching Henderson State and Arkansas Little Rock. Drew Mouse will wrap up this show on the Jetcast here with me. Coach, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate having you on the show here on the big fancy version for the first time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, and every single question, this is kind of a broken record, but how's 2020 been for you in the midst of all this pandemic?
A wrecking ball into everything. Whatever plans you originally have, throw those out the window, start from scratch. Once you get those plans set up, throw those out the window, start from scratch again. A lot of people are just asking for normalcy, and I don't even care about normalcy. I just want continuity, just something that we can roll with and keep for a long time.
I tell everybody who has a birthday this year, I used to say, hey, have a great day. Now I just say have an average day because, my standards are lower this year. 2019-2020 season, up to that point, your first year, I know that you were not coming in and expecting, to win all 25 games that you played.
Right.
What were your thoughts on the games that you did play and what you did see out of your team on the field in that short first season?
Well, coming and playing in the MIAA obviously is a juggernaut in of itself, and then opening up conference with Central Oklahoma and Central Missouri.
They didn't do you many favors, did they?
Here's a nice welcome wagon from the MIAA for your first coaching experience. But I thought we competed. Once we got to the MIAA conference play, I thought we were competing at a high level. Obviously, you take any win that you can get against UCO and UCM. We won the first MIAA game against UCO, run ruling them on Friday night. And then the next weekend, I thought we played well 2 out of the 3 games against Central Missouri. So I was happy to get to Northeastern and some of the other teams, to not saying that we were going to sweep them or anything like that, but it was at least one of those okay, now we can breathe and just play.
Sure.
So it was good. As the saying always goes, it's always nice to win the last game of the season.
Right.
And we got to do that, and looking forward to this year.
Obviously, when you were playing that last game of the season, you had to have some idea that there was something happening with everything that had been going on in the news in terms of the cancellations, not just in the sports landscape, but all over. But what were your feelings when, I'm sure that Joe got a hold of you after the game with her phone and said, oh, by the way, this is your last game as of right now for the season?
Yeah, I think Joe and Zane and I had a conversation earlier that morning about that the ADs were having a conference call that day. And I remember at the home plate meeting with Jake, we're sitting there going over ground rules, and I just said, hey, there's a really good chance that our AD is going to come out here and yank us off the field, so just giving you a heads up for that.
Sure.
So, we went through it all or whatever, and Zane was out there, and I had, brief conversation in the middle of the game, like what's going on, and I think it was like the 8th or 9th inning. he said, yeah, I think they're shutting it down. So we got through the game, won.
Yeah, I thought Joe, I talked to her earlier, and she had gotten the email, I think, while you guys were playing, and she didn't know what she was supposed to do. If she was supposed to stop the game,
Yep.
if she was supposed to just let you guys finish. I think a good decision by letting you guys finish.
Well, it was a good decision since we won. If we would have lost, it would have been a bad decision. But yeah,
I understand. How difficult is it to, I think for any new head coach, they go into a program, they have their first year, and you want to evaluate where you are after your first year. And there's obviously a certain, I'm sure in your mind, there was a place that you wanted to get to. Maybe it wasn't wins and losses, but how much more difficult is it to evaluate that when you don't really get a full year? You guys should have been playing into May, and instead you didn't even make it to spring break.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I've talked to my dad on several occasions. He coached baseball for a long time, and just I don't know what to think about it. I know that I learned a lot. I think our team kind of figured out what I wanted out of them. I think they would have enjoyed a longer chance to put that into action and everything. And then moving forward with coming into this year, there's guys that are returning that know what I expect out of them, but it's still, because we didn't go through an entire year, it's like, am I right on that's what he wants, or is there still a little bit of gray area here? And so this fall, making sure that we're trying to get on that page of this is what I expect, this is what I want, has been a big thing.
Well, and you guys, I've seen the social media posts, by the way, with a couple of the ladies from the women's basketball team helping out. And if you want to get the Newman Jets baseball newsletter, you can follow them on Twitter at Newman Jets BSB on Twitter. Braxton and Brooke doing a fantastic job, or beg your pardon, Bailey doing a great job putting that out for you guys. Fall ball, what are the activities that you guys are allowed to do at this point, at this part of the season, with all the rules discombobulated from what they normally are? We've
been inter-squatting. We've got 2 weeks left, and setting up the fall was the hardest thing. The school kind of said we wanted to have these group practices for as long as possible. Basketball, volleyball, that's great because they're inside.
Right.
Baseball, you've got a short period, especially in Kansas. You have a short time period. You got to get stuff in. So, we went with the 3 weeks of individual stuff, and then we just said we're going to try and get this done in 1 month as quickly as we possibly can. So we've inter-squatted almost 3 or 4 times a week. Thankfully, this year we have 22 arms. Last year, I think we only had 11.
Yeah.
So it was a lot harder
I bet.
to get the inter-squads in. But this year, we've been able to get as much in as we possibly can, and so far I've liked what we've seen.
Well, what do you feel like is the area of improvement from last year's team that you'd like to see to this year's team? Not that you don't want to improve in all phases of the game,
right,
but if there's one that you can pick that's going to give you the biggest impact for this year, what do you think that would be?
Pitching. Obviously, only having a certain number of arms harms you. With 22, we've got some big-time returners. Schumann and Boaz are back. Dickey's back. We've added a couple of junior college arms, local junior college arms. We have a bunch of freshmen. And so far the freshmen have done a really good job of competing, pounding the zone, throwing secondary pitches for strikes. And if we can get them acclimated to playing college baseball and understanding that every hitter you have to get out, it's not just going to be get the first 3 guys out and you should be okay.
Sure.
Understanding that, I think we'll be competitive again. Last year, Zane and I were just talking about how I think we fielded like 980 and a 980 clip, which is fantastic, especially playing for natural grass and everything like that.
What do you feel like? I've always wondered, when you look at fielding percentage, what's the benchmark? Obviously for hitting, if you're hitting over 300, that's good. If you're 250 to 300, that's okay. 200 to 250 is not so good. If you're below the Mendoza line, obviously that's bad.
Right.
What do you think? Do they have those for fielding percentage? I know with all the I'm sure there's a sabermetrician out there that's just rolling over in his grave right now.
You know, I don't try to base everything off the big league level, but I think the worst fielding percentage of the big leagues is like .985.
Sure.
So they just do a lot better job of playing catch more than anything. So, we try to make sure that we're within that 5 to 8% range of the worst MLB teams.
Sure.
So, 970 to 980 would be fantastic for us.
What's it been like for you as a new coach? I know that you've had a lot of things that you've tried to do in terms of events, get-togethers, golf tournaments, trying to get your alumni, which is one of the more active alumni bases in Newman Athletics, together. What's it been like to try to build that relationship with them and kind of take over from what Coach Zane Ealing was doing in terms of trying to build that support for your program?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, alumni should be appreciated and celebrated as much as possible. And, that was the big thing that I wanted to do as soon as we took over, was celebrate those guys that have come before us, celebrate our Hall of Fame members, celebrate the 83 team. Try to get everybody that's put on a Newman Jutes uniform the chance to feel appreciated for what they've done to where the program is now.
And not only that, but Paul Sanagorski Day was coming up. We're in the Child's conference room to film these, and he might be. Is this true? Is he the only Newman Jet baseball player with a retired number 11?
Number 11.
Obviously, the all-time winningest coach in the history of Newman was supposed to be out there at the field, have an event here with big plans, and obviously those were totally dashed by coronavirus. But on the schedule here for this year. But what's it been like to try to have you gotten to know Coach Sanagorski and be able to kind of bring him back into the program a little bit more?
Yeah, Taylor was part of our staff last year, and he took a job at Butler. And I'm happy he did. In college baseball, the more you can move up, the quicker you can move up, the better off you are. But him being around, and then we've talked numerous times, and kind of just left an open door with him. Like, whenever you want to come around, you can come around. I don't want you to feel like you're a shadow and that I'm afraid or anything. Like, I want you to be here. I want them to know. I want our guys to play the way that your guys played. So if we can get you around more, let's do it.
As of right now, are you under the impression that the spring schedule for the MIAA for baseball, is that going to be normal this year? Is it delayed? We've been focused so much on basketball, winter sports, as appropriately as we should be, and then obviously the fall sports as well, because they're not playing right now. What do you know about what the spring sports plans are for the diamond sports?
Well, what's your definition of normal?
So that would be what, February 1.
Yeah.
You guys are playing down in Texas somewhere where it's not 30 degrees.
Right. No, it's not going to be normal at all. They've already cut. The NCAA's already cut 20%, so it's 10 games for us. So we're originally at 50 games, now we're at 40 games. The MIAA is 33 out of those 40 games. So it leaves us with 7 games. So we've originally start the first weekend of February. This year we're not starting until the second or third week in February.
Wow, it'll be a heat wave by then.
Yeah. Got to melt that snow sometime.
That's right.
And then usually our team is Fort Hays. Our conference games with them are midweek games, and they've push those to the end of the season. So we'll play a 3-game series with them at the end of the season. So normal, no, but at least normal to where we should get 33 games in from a conference standpoint. Yeah, I'll take it.
We're hoping for February here as we get set for baseball. And like I said, softball will be coming. We'll have them on here in a couple of weeks to preview that with them. Coach Drew Mouse, let's hope for at least not a regular second season, but let's at least play all the games. How about that?
If we can get 40 out of 40, I'm in.
I'd love for you guys to have the opportunity to get 7 rainouts this year. At least to let you guys play. That would be fantastic. Coach, thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be back with another episode of the Jetcast I do promise. Men's basketball is coming next week, and so we'll see you then. So until then, Blake Cripps saying, go Jets.